I'm Mel Stewart, and this is Swim Swam Podcast. Joining me today, we got a special guest. We have an Australian swim star, a backstroke and medley specialist, a FINA world champion, a three-time Olympian, and also a personal friend, someone that I work with in terms of business. She's the director of sales and marketing for Teamtopia. Today, we have Elli Overton. How you doing?
Hey, Mel. Good to see you.
We have to give people some context and let them know just the connection and how deep it goes. It goes all the way to our neighborhood. We're neighbors. We go to the same coffee shop.
That's right. The sea.
Swimming is a small world. You know, there's other Olympians in our neighborhood.
Yeah, I know. Austin is kind of big on the swimming Olympians too, actually.
There was a point where I could throw a rock and I could like throw it over 6 Olympians. Donovan Powell lives 6 houses down from me.
Right.
He's in track
His
and field.
kids swam on my team.
Yeah, Jamaican track and field guy. I think his brother ran in the most recent, one of the more recent Olympics. But yes, small world, full of Olympians down here in South Austin. You graduated from Berkeley with high honors degree in business, and you are doing, you're director of sales at Teamtopia. And I could explain it, but I would say it is team management software, the leader in the summer league niche. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yep. We help those little summer league teams run more smoothly and save time and effort.
And summer league for most people know it, but not everyone knows it. Summer league is massive compared to year-round swimming.
It is massive. Yeah. They're saying sort of more like 25,000 teams rather than 3,000 teams in the year-round market. But we are going to broaden into year-round, broaden into other sports. And so we got big dreams at Teamtopia. That's good stuff.
There's more to come on SwimSwam about Teamtopia.
For sure.
The reason why I asked you on is because, there's, you think about athletes and you take it for granted when you're talking to your brothers and sisters among the Olympic Games, our Olympic brothers and sisters. We all have a history. And it's like, as we get older, it's just a paragraph, you read the short bio and that's it. But there's so much rich history here. And there's a lot of emotions and there's a lot of, there's high points and low points. At this moment in time, we rolled into this Olympics and a few things were different. They changed. I think a good way to start is to say that, Michael Phelps had a documentary on HBO, The Weight of Gold, and it basically boiled down to the mental health of athletes and this unspoken secret that's out there.
Yeah.
And then we saw it kind of play out over the U.S. market, over U.S. trials with some, with the year delay, with some iconic athletes not making the team, barely missing the team. One in particular was one that I'm a huge Simone Manuel fan. And, she walked out of her race, her post-Olympic race interview, seconds later, which they always have. And I'm paraphrasing, but she basically said, I don't understand why we're expected to answer seconds after our race, because sometimes we don't have answers. And clearly she was trying to unpack that she, that this event wasn't going the way everyone expected for her. And that was tough to watch. That was tough to watch. So in a recent coffee moment with you at our coffee shop, I was digging into your past and I didn't remember this, but you said, I'm going to send you a link to an interview I did in '96 after the Atlanta Olympics in your 200 IM. And you kind of explained it to me, but you don't understand it until you see this video. And we're going to include this video link in our show notes right now. If you're listening, press pause, pop over and listen to the interview. Watch the race and listen to the interview. But you said back in '96, essentially what Simone said in 2021. In your words, can you describe that moment? Because I can, I've got a lot of notes and I can help unpack it from there.
Right. Yeah, I think I went into that race, the 200 IM final. I was in lane 5, '96 Olympics. You know, I'm coming off a year where I was ranked #1, I was Pan Pac champion, I was world short course champion going into 96 Olympics. So there was a lot of expectations on me. There was a lot of expectations from myself on me. I was certainly expecting, you know, this was my year to get that podium finish, you know. And I swam my race, and you know, if you watch it, you'll see the piano drop, you know, with about 25 to go, and I hopped out, and Australian swimming had been given a really hard time in the Australian media for the entire 5 days leading up to that. We were not, you know, coming up to expectations, and it's really hard, I think, for Americans and for a lot of people around the world to understand what swimming in Australia is really like, because it is really the thing in that country. Whereas, you know, it's a bit of an afterthought, except for every 4 years around the rest of the world, maybe. In Australia, it's a big thing, swimming. And so there's a lot of pressure on us and a lot of expectations. And so, yeah, it was just really hard to be sort of, the commentator asked, you know, what happened kind of thing. And it's sort of like, gosh, I wish I knew, you know. You think I wanted to come fifth? I didn't want to come fifth. You know, it was not the plan. I trained for the Olympics. I, you know, put everything into this moment, and I didn't pull it off and didn't pull it together. And it is really, really hard to try to explain that in that moment and to put on a face. And, you know, I think during the 2020 games as well, like Caleb Dressel, like he had some real moments, like where you saw how much emotion there is in those like after race moments. It's just a really, really hard time to have a microphone put in your face, sort of, no matter how you do, really.
Let me confess a sin. Let me confess something to our audience, and then let's bring it back to this interview, because I'm going to add some more details to this interview. But during our most recent Olympics, we were doing what SwimSwam does, which is breaking down the analytics, calling who's going to win and who's not, what was successful, what was not. And that's standard fare. But in the back of my head, I felt uneasy about it, because we're coming off of a pandemic. We're coming off, this is a historic moment. This hasn't happened in a century in human history. And you just said it, you know, someone who's very successful, Caleb Dressel, 5 gold medals. You know, he is just, when they just crack the door on the topic, you know, he is holding back tears because it's been so stressful. So it was very pronounced at this past Olympics. Just out of curiosity, was this top of mind? Were you uncomfortable watching the Olympics because of this? Thinking this?
During this year, like when I watch it, yeah, I just, you know, feel for the athletes. I put myself in their shoes, you know, and you see some questions that commentators ask, right? Like just kind of the cluelessness, you know. It's just hard, but you know, it's different for us because we've lived it. We know what they're feeling and what they're thinking. A commentator's, you know, not been in that place, so they're not, you know, and they're trying to say something that's going to make sense to the audience back home. And, you know, it's a hard moment. It's hard to remember that these people are human, and you know, they're just regular people, you know, even though they're up there and they're at the Olympics and they're getting medals, like they're still human. They have feelings. They have, you know, a lot going on.
Before we come back to the interview in 96, because there's a whole lot there. Your interview. I will say this: we've had James Magnuson on the SwimSwam pod 4 times. Nearly 4.5 hours of just talking to him, and at a certain point, he was talking about this moment where his life went from anonymity to extreme fame. Like he had, I think it was maybe it was one of the relays, and he was only 19, and the Australian television broke into all primetime shows and ran the event, and he did really well and delivered gold Olympic, delivered a gold medal. And then he took up like a week vacation with his dad in Thailand, and then showed up at, you know, back home in Australia and walked off the plane and went, my life had changed forever. And he explained it in terms of, because we'd see him in Austin. He was at a music festival in Austin. He's like, I love coming to the United States because nobody knows me. And he's like, you know, it's not that way.
I moved here.
So I made fun of him. I made the fatty lip and said, oh, I'm so sorry, Maggie, that you're famous and it's terrible for you.
Mm-hmm.
He laughed and he moved on. And then he proceeded to explain. He goes, no, you don't understand. This is hard. It's really a difficult thing. So the pressures are extraordinary. I keep hearing it over and over. We hear it, but it feels like it's theoretical for our US based fans.
Right.
For you, heading into 96, there were some, I can sum up the articles that were written, but there was an enormous amount of fanfare. There was supposed to be this a huge number of talent coming in to deliver gold back to Australia.
Yeah.
And they were really beating the drum. And
as they do, Mel, every time.
But there were some exceptions, there were some successes, but there were more failure. And the Daily Telegraph, they splashed in like 24-point font across the front page, our Olympic failure. And so when you reference in the interview that news has been kind of negative, and you push back on the person interviewing you, who, by the way, is Neil Brooks, Channel 7, which I know that you know. And
Olympian himself, been there, done that.
Watching the video, reading about all the history, and then watching this video, I was physically uncomfortable and angry at him watching it.
Yeah.
How you looked angry and looked like you were teary-eyed at one point. So what was going through your head when you decided to push back?
Yeah, I nearly cried in that interview when I watch it. It's like there's that moment where I'm on the verge. I had a lot pent up. I was at the time, the 2 years before 96, I moved to Brisbane and I was training, and my training group, we used to be affectionately termed the super team. I swam with Susie O'Neill, Samantha Riley, Angela Kennedy, who was the world short course champion in butterfly at the time. There were 6 of us on the Olympic team from the one training group. And so there was a lot of pressure on us. And Susie and Sam were 2 of the biggest names in Australian swimming at the time, current world champions, world record holders. It was a huge amount of pressure going into those Olympics. And it was just, and so, you try so hard, and this, Mel, it's so hard at the Olympics. You try to be so focused on what you have to do, and you try to shut everything else out, and you just try to keep in your own world, and you just want to be able to shut everything out, but it's just hard. You're hearing stories, you got people telling you stories, you see the odd paper, you see the odd headline, whatever it is, my friends are crying, I'm like, you're very affected. It's really hard to stay in your own game. And so, I just heard these stories and so I just kind of felt like this was my moment, and maybe my last moment to say something and to kind of stand up for my teammates and myself, and, just sort of try to say, look, who are you all to try to dissect how we're doing? These people that are at home saying they coulda, shoulda, woulda, should have done this, and they weren't good, and they're not strong enough, and they're not mentally tough enough, and all this kind of thing. And Neil Brooks was saying to me, well, we're just trying to work out what's wrong, or trying to solve what's happening. And it's sort of like, oh my gosh, we're all individuals. We all have different things going on. We've had different injuries. We've had different, things that have happened. You can't generalize and go, oh, all Australians just not mentally tough enough. It was just so frustrating. And to, so I'm just this very honest person. I'm just going to tell you what's on my mind. And I just did to all of Australia in that moment. Because everyone's watching, they're watching.
If you watch the interview, if you've paused and watched it, or you watch it after this podcast, I think you're going to have the same reaction that I did, which is you're going to be angry. But there was a moment I can see on your face. You're thinking, you can tell you're making decisions, and that because you just finished a race. It's emotional. Just pause with me here for a second, and this is what you said. Really, when you push back, I can't explain the way I swam today. I can't explain what has gone wrong here. All I know is that I've done everything I can do the best I can. I've worked my ass off. Did you say arse or ass? I
Probably
think you
said
said
arse at
arse.
the
You said
time.
arse off.
Yeah, arse at the time. Yeah.
The training I've done over the last 18 months has been the hardest I've ever done. I've trained like you would not believe. I've given up everything. You get a little teary-eyed.
Hmm.
And he's pushing
Yep.
back. You know,
He's trying to say everyone loves you, and is that when he was saying that?
he was backpedaling. So he backpedals. He backpedals. He's like, we're just concerned about you. And I think he wasn't expecting you to push back. And he's like, we're disappointed too. It's only because we love you so much. And by that time, you're already revved up and going. And it's like, you have no right to be disappointed in us. You respond and you wipe back a tear. We've done all the hard work. So we are the ones who should be disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah. That said it. That said it for me.
Yeah. It's hard because you are representing your country. You are swimming for your country, and you care and you want. And like I said in my interview, it's like everyone at the Olympics has done everything they can, right? You've tried to make decisions that most people don't have to think about on a daily basis, right? Like we've tried to, go to bed on time, miss that party, set the alarm early enough, work out until we vomited, sweat until, just things that most people don't do every day. And we did it every day, and we did it for 4 years in the build-up, right? And you really have worked 4 years for this moment, and it comes down to a moment, and it's just the pressure is unbelievable. And you've done everything you can. There's no one shows up and they're not there to no one's there to come third or come fifth or come, no one's there to not make the final. We're all there trying to do all the things that the country and the team and everyone wants us to do. And so to try to explain that to people, what didn't happen, it takes you years. Like I'm still working it out. I'm still trying to work it out, right? Like what part of it was my mental distraction? What part of it was my physical overtraining? What part of it, because I have all these reasons that I know contributed. It wasn't one thing. But I tell you, I didn't know 20, 30 seconds after popping out of the pool. So it's just, it's a hard thing.
Yeah. So Michelle Smith. For
Yeah.
the record, does your place go up?
No, it doesn't. Nothing changes.
So
Yeah.
Michelle Smith got busted for doping.
Yeah. And
So,
in my 94 World Championship bronze, the Chinese girl that won, she got busted for doping 2 months later. Michelle Smith got busted 2 years later. But no, nothing changes. You stay the same place that you were.
I think places matter. I think if somebody cheats, I think the record should be changed. How do you feel about that?
Oh, well, it's hard to say because especially for her, she didn't test positive until 2 years later. So people could say, was she on drugs at the time? I'll tell you, I did get pretty distracted right before the race, Mel, because they were going, we all get introduced and they give you a little blurb about some things about us. And on the screen facing the big timing board that was facing, the direction I was standing, it was saying what position people had come at the last Olympics. And so Michelle was in lane 1 and it said that she'd come, I want to say 21st or 22nd at 1992 Olympics. Now she was standing next to then it was Marianne Limpet, who'd come 6th, and me, who'd come 5th, and Lee Lin, who'd come 2nd. And all the rest of us 4 years before, we'd been right there. We had been in the same place we were in that day. And to see someone who was in the 20s, and she was 26 at the time, I believe. You don't go to the Olympics at 22 and be 22nd and then go to the Olympics at 26 and win 4 gold medals. That's just not really a thing. If you're gonna, so that was a distraction. Right before my race, it had on the scoreboard what she'd come at 1992 Olympics, and I was like, what? Because she'd already won, 2 gold medals at that point in the Olympics. It was distracting.
I can share an opinion, And the opinion,
Mhm.
because we, you know, I can share an opinion, but it doesn't pass the smell test. And when it doesn't pass the smell test and you're in the thick of it, you're in the hunt, you're in the fight,
Mhm.
it's corrosive. And what you're
Mhm.
describing is that corrosive aspect of cheating and the
Mhm.
very real, palpable impact it has in the moment, the Olympic final. That's what that
Mhm.
is.
Mhm. Mhm. You know, yeah. And it's like, it's, I think we talked a bit about this when we were having coffee too. I was talking about how much I kind of love that we have so much access to so much media now, and like people doing these kind of interviews, I've heard a lot of interviews with Olympic gold medalists since and things like that. And the people who win, they can tune all this out. They can, at least during that period that they need to, they can focus down and they can get it done. And I couldn't do that. And that's what I have to live with, right? That's who I was, it's who I am. That's okay. But they can tune it out. But it is hard to tune it out. The reality is, like, that's why they win. I mean, that's the next level of people that can do that.
But that's not a fair statement. I'm gonna, because we live in this world where you have to do it once every 4 years. And if we're being honest, the Australian national team has fallen short of expectations in many past quads. They've done extraordinarily
All the
well
way
at
until this year.
world
Until this year
champs,
was the first time.
world champs, Pan Pacific championships over and over and over and over.
You do
Just,
it there.
yeah, I mean, you're talking about a nation that is smaller than Orange County in terms of population. So the United States, it's like if we had a dual meet, the United States would be competing against Orange County.
Right. Yeah, it's a bit like Texas. It's kind of like almost Texas population.
It's
Kind of
it's
crazy.
so it's not a fair, it's not fair. But my point is you're supposed to do this once every 4 years, or your career doesn't have as much meaning. But the truth is, you know what it means to win, and you
Hmm.
know what it means to stand on top of the podium. And you've
Yeah.
had the moment where it's like, I am the best on earth right now.
Hmm.
And it's but it wasn't at this moment in time.
Hmm. And that's the hard question that I get when people learn that I went to the Olympics. Often, I would say, bordering on about 50% of the time, when people hear that I went to the Olympics, the next question is, did you get a medal? And for someone like me who got so many medals, like got a medal at everything else, like world championships, world short course, Pan Pacs, Commonwealths, national, like, it's like they ask, did you get a medal? And they really only mean the one. They mean the Olympic medal. And I have to say no. And it's hard because I feel like it boils my whole 9-year career down to the thing I didn't do. And so that is very painful, quite honestly. And it's something I'm still working on. I'm getting much better though.
So we
Yeah.
not only live in the same neighborhood, have the same coffee shop. So we also have a parallel here. In '88, I was ranked second in the world going in, and I got fifth.
Right.
And but if I'd done my best time, I would have won silver.
Yes.
And right, exactly like you. If you had done you
Mm-hmm.
say it in the interview in
100%.
'96,
Yeah.
if you had done your best time, you would have gotten silver. But it doesn't work
Yep.
it doesn't always work out that way. It's one day in your career.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So for me personally, I think that I was clinically depressed for 2 years.
Mm.
I think it took
Wow.
me 2 years before my brain was actually okay.
Mm.
I either I had trained really hard, but I don't know how good the training
Mm-hmm.
was, or I was
Mm-hmm.
partying and drinking.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
know, which is college, part of the drinking culture, and
Mm-hmm.
So I was either working
Good
hard
thing we
or
were
numb
before social media, Mel.
before social media.
No one caught it.
But that was my experience. Do you think it impacted you in a similar way? Or, what was your
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah. No, my experience after 96 was pretty devastated. I don't know that I would say I was clinically depressed, but it was a big struggle. I pretty much didn't enjoy the whole rest of the Olympics. I pretty much huddled and didn't have any fun there, which was really tragic to me afterwards. I was like, I can't believe I missed all the fun, because I was in my own world. And I came home, I was ready to quit swimming. I think the thing that we struggle with when this kind of stuff happens, when we don't achieve what we think we can achieve, the thing about a lot of people don't understand about being at our level is that we have to tell ourselves every day that we are the best and that we can be the best in the world. And you have to believe it. You can't just go there, and think maybe. You have to really believe it. And so every day we, kind of talking yourself into this, right? All the time. You're telling yourself, you're great, you're good enough. No, you are good enough. Yes, you are good. You're as good as that person is. No, you're good enough. You can do this, and you tell it to yourself every day for so long. And then the results show that, hey, you're full of it. You were wrong. You lied. You lied to yourself. And you are not that good. And that's that's a very painful thing, because you're still in the mode. And if you're going to keep swimming, you have to get back on the horse and tell yourself again, that was one day. I am good. No, I can't. I can do this. So I nearly quit swimming. It's actually when I came to America. So, there's, I did kind of run away from Australia when I came to America. Certainly when I stayed here after 2000 and decided to stay here, I kind of didn't want to go put myself back into the fray in Australia where, it's hard. I'm sure if any American swimmers are watching these, they're just going to laugh to think that the chick that came fifth at the Olympics was like recognizable in stores and restaurants, and like people knew who I was. And, and that's from coming fifth. That would not happen in America. Now I had all the other years where I did win the medals and stuff like that, right? So that's how I was known. But I would have people ask me, what happened? Strangers, people I'd never known, people I don't know. Okay, so my friends or something like that. Yeah, I'm happy to have a deep and meaningful conversation with you about what I think might have happened. And let's unpack it, and let's cry together and laugh together and whatever. But stranger on the street asking me what happened, I'm not explaining myself to you. Who are you? No, I don't want to talk to you. Thank you anyway for bringing up this very painful time in my life. But yeah, no, I don't want to do that. So yeah, it was hard to get over after 96. But I came over here to America. That's when I went to Cal, put myself in a different environment. Loved that experience. Got so much out of that experience. Just amazing. And so that was it's like my consolation prize. If I'd won, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have the same kids I have today. I wouldn't, I think about that a lot. My whole life would have taken a different trajectory. I never would have moved to America. And, so that moment shaped my whole life, quite honestly.
I tell you how many times I've heard that.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. You build to this moment. It's almost like this huge buildup of energy, and then the road forks off, and you take certain paths. Mm-hmm. It's in the aftermath of the Olympics, and so I didn't go to 3 Olympics. I went to 2 Olympics because I'm also a member of the third place club. So 88 was 5th, 92 success, but in 96 I get 3rd Olympic trials, which was kind of a relief because I did have 92. Yeah. But then you get into your 30s, and I had a lot of negative memories about the Olympic Games, and I went into therapy and did therapeutic practices and like targeted areas of my swimming career, specifically 88 and other moments, because it was always in the back of my head, and I felt like it was shaping how I lived in the world. I think a lot of people are experiencing that. And do you feel like this is something that's with you, that at times it all comes back up?
Yeah, it does. It's strange. I look back on my career, and I really wish I had used sports psychology and psychology during my career, I think it could have been really hugely beneficial. Unfortunately, I came from a family where there was some stigma around that. Like, you're crazy if you go to therapy, you know, it's like, what? No, you're not. You're like really healthy if you go to therapy, just in case anyone out there's wondering. But no, so, you know, I didn't have that support then, but there was a time after my retirement, after Sydney Games, that when I went into retirement, I was sort of having to navigate the world without swimming. That I found like I was just like really angry all the time. It's just had a lot of anger. And I finally kind of went to therapy. I finally, you know, I had a girlfriend, she was like, you know what, you need therapy. And I was like, okay. And I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I didn't come into therapy going, oh, yeah, I've had these issues and, you know, these past things have happened to me. I didn't really think about my Olympics and my swimming as like this kind of trauma or tragedy or anything like that, obviously, right? So when I went to therapy, I didn't know what I was going to talk about. And I talked about swimming and talked about swimming. And then some more, I talked about swimming. And I was like, wow, I had no idea that this was what was going on for me, you know? So that's really interesting.
You mortgaged your childhood to be an elite athlete.
Yeah.
You're going to talk about swimming.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
If I could do anything, if I could do anything in your life, I would create a poster and I would be like, and the poster would say 3-time Olympian, FINA world champion, Pan Pac champion, and, you know, graduate of Cal Berkeley high honors. And I would just so you wake up and see that every day, because that's
right.
That's extraordinary. That's like top 1/10% in the world in terms of achievement. And I hope that you look at your life and think and live in that sort of confidence. But
yeah,
I don't know, where are you right now?
Yeah, I feel good. I think my 20th anniversary of retirement was a year ago, and I had some it really hit me. It was very intense. You know, we were all going through COVID at the time. This was like October of last year. And so we all had a lot of time on our hands, you know, and I just got thinking about this date and it just hit me. And it was just like, wow, 20 years, you know, and I thought about getting an Olympic tattoo finally. I thought about, you know, just tried to like put it all in perspective and do better at putting it in perspective. And I had this moment, which was really difficult, which was in my office here, I have some of my Olympic finalist certificates and stuff framed, and I have my Commonwealth record that the first one I set was in the heats in 1992 Olympics. And I went over to the record and I read it. Mel, it was my fastest Olympic swim of three Olympics, 6 Olympic swims, 200 IMs, my very first one, best one. I never got faster than that at the Olympics. That was kind of, whoa. That was one of those moments of like, wow, I really lied to myself. Like, it was like, my God, I must, you know, what was wrong with me that I could never lift higher than that again at the Olympics, no matter how much. I did so much training after that. I did so much more specific training. I did so much harder training. I gave up so many things in my life in the years after that. And I never got faster than my first swim at the Olympics. So, you know, but anywho, where am I now? I feel like that was a really great experience to go through that 20th anniversary of retirement, and just to try to put it all in better perspective. And I do try to, you know, do kind of what you said and think about like the positive things and the things that I have achieved that, you know, they're the ones that kind of count. And it's shaped me into the person who I am. And I don't have regrets with that. I'm not into regrets. So I'm cool with that.
Something that's been like the most positive experience I've had in swim has been connection to alumni, connection to peers, connection to the community. Because the truth is, nobody cares what you achieved. It's like if you've ascended to a certain stratosphere, it's like you're just a part of the swimming community. And then you show up at events or business conferences or parties or whatever, and it's you're just people, and you have this one common language called swimming. And
well,
That's gotten better and better over the years. And I've really appreciated that.
Well, and I think the thing that I came down to when I was thinking about all these things a year ago was that the friendships are by far the most important thing that I could take from my whole career. Like the friendships were just so, I just, the people that I knew and how close we were, and how when you see them after not seeing them for 10, 15 years, you can just fall straight back into feeling that camaraderie with them. So I that was something that I really took out of that time, was like, gosh, the friendships I had, the memories, the travel, there was a lot of good stuff happened there. And so I feel lucky.
And this is how you know it. As you get older and people die, bad things happen, and you have conversations with people around you about some dramatic moment in your life. But if you're talking to somebody who maybe you haven't talked to in 10 years or 20 years, but you swam together when you were kids, that conversation is much deeper and much more raw. You're much more true in that moment.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what swimming is. It really is a
Right.
family. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping FINA champion, FINA world champion, hand pack gold medalist. It's I'm hoping that you're living in that space. Let's go back to your career as a whole. There's one moment in an athlete's, in an elite athlete's career, where it just felt perfect. The swim
Mm,
was right, and there was this sense of joy, and you
mm,
feel free. What was that moment
mm-hmm.
for you?
Gosh, I can really, it's really sad to say, but I can really only remember one. It's funny because like when I won Pan Pacs and when I won World Short Course, they were kind of like they're like, well, I mean, I won Commonwealth Games too, and that's my story. But it was very much, I was very much like, I expected that of myself. I looked up at the board. I was happy with how I did, but I very much like thought, yep, that was my goal to win. I got the gold, good. Like I didn't go like, wow, that was amazing. I'm so excited. I was very matter of fact about those wins. There was one swim, and it was the 400 IM at Commonwealth Games in 1994, when I don't really do the 400 IM, and I don't like it. But I was having a banner year in 1994, and I went to Commonwealth Games trials, and I really had this goal that I wanted to like make some relays, and like I just wanted to make all this stuff, and I made the team, and in 6 different events. And so the 400 IM was up really early, and it was on the same night as the 4x200 freestyle relay. And of course, this is in the era of Hayley Lewis, if you can remember her, which is a fantastic, amazing Australian swimmer that she is. And she was swimming, the 400 IM as well. And I had actually touched her out in the final of the 200 freestyle. Anywho, the head coach of Australian swimming at the time, Don Talbot, was a really hard coach, and he decided that I should not be in the 4x200 freestyle relay. And I basically was really mad at him because I thought, you've taken this medal off me, and you don't think I can do this, and you don't believe in me. You don't think I can do a 400 IM, the 200 free on the same day. So I went into that 400 IM, and I was just like, I'm going to show you, Don, take this. And I won, and I did my best time by like 4 or 5 seconds. Oh man, you see that post-race video? I am like, what? I was going crazy. I was like, I'm number 1. I was like, which is not, if you know me, that's not really my personality. So that was probably the one where I was like, I just had so much adrenaline going into that, and no pressure at all, because it wasn't even my event, and that's probably the most fun. Just like, yeah, wow, that didn't even hurt. Take that 400 IM that didn't even hurt. Like, that's unheard of. So yeah.
Did you say anything to him afterwards?
Nah, he put me in the 4x100 freestyle though, so I did get my relay swim and got my silver out of that. But yeah, he kind of, I think he was a bit head between his legs, I have to say, for Don, for a moment, what he's like. But yeah.
Great story. I like that.
Yeah. That was good times.
Is there, in terms of what you saw from the Olympics, in terms of, is there any moment of joy that, when you feel a connection to the sport after witnessing what you witnessed this summer at the games?
Yeah. I think, I think it's interesting to watch it as the years go by, and like the older I get and then watching it, and I feel really watching it this year, well, seeing these poor kids walk into that opening ceremony with no crowd in the stands brought a tear to my eye. I really felt so sad that they weren't having the full, I do feel bad for these kids and adults that didn't have the full Olympics experience this year, because especially for swimming, it's just such a unique thing, and so this year more than ever, I really felt lucky. I was like, you know what, I had it all. I had a home Olympic Games. You did. No, you didn't. Sorry, don't ignore me. I was thinking of LA was 84. You were 88. You were in Seoul. That's far from home. But no, but like I had a home Olympic Games in Sydney. I had, just amazing experiences and the full experience, and I feel really lucky for that.
Out of curiosity, just seeing the success that Swimming Australia put together this summer.
So excited now. Oh my gosh. Like that was just, because if you look back at, things that I've written or been written about the Australian swim team, was like, they always thought we could get 8, 9 gold medals, and realistically, statistically, if you look at the size of Australia, like you were talking about Orange County, Texas, whatever the size of it is, it's really unrealistic to think that we're going to get that. Like, all the stars must align for that to happen. And, they aligned in Emma McKeon and Kaylee and like Ariana and like all these amazing, and the guys. And, it was, so that was just amazing. It was amazing to watch and just see us like really actually finally do what Australians have always expected us to do. And it was like, wow, like we actually can do it. Look at that. That's amazing. So yeah, it was great.
As someone with so much experience, 3 Olympics under your belt, you work, you're a leader in the business of swimming. You've stayed connected to the sport for many, many decades now. So I'd say if you had any advice as we close out this podcast for an athlete who's at the elite level now, what's your advice to them? Because you spoke your truth in 96. What would you say to someone now?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. But just to correct you there, I had a whole more than a decade where I was not connected to the world of swimming. I really stepped away and tried to be away from it, and then got pulled back into it. And I'm glad that I did. I felt like I was fighting it by staying away. Don't be shy. Like swimming's what we love. There's probably a place for you in that world. That's a really good question, Mel. I think just once it's all said and done and you've retired from swimming and you step back, just appreciate it. Just stop beating yourself up, go to therapy, really work through it and get to the place of appreciation for what you did achieve, because what you did achieve is probably amazing.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.